Hi there. Thanks so much for joining us. This is another Hot Topic webinar by Horizon. We are here today to explain what it takes to ready your drawings for Archibus or for IWMS in general. Some of the considerations around that. And I have with me Tiffany Lamb. She's an application architect here at Horizon who's going to go through the product and also explain a little bit about some of the steps and procedures, things to think about. Before we get to that, though, I did want to just remind everybody that the IWMS is an integrated workplace management system that offers the control and optimization and reporting and oversight. The Archibus itself is a suite of applications designed to address business needs, to improve efficiencies, achieve operational excellence, create cost savings, and increase profitability. Once your drawings are linked to the database, you'll be able to visualize your data, your space, your occupancy. You'll be able to locate assets on a map. You can share that information. It's all about data share and accuracy and access to your facilities and your portfolios. This is just a couple of pictures of some of the various ways that you can display your data. And obviously, if you're able to take the steps that Tiffany will share with you today, then you should be able to do a good many of these, get a lot of these results. So I will pass the baton over to Tiffany Lamb. Welcome. Thank you very much for joining us, Tiffany.
Thank you, Ayanna. I'm happy to take on the screen, and I am actually going to start. All right. So the preface today of the conversation is mainly the drawing remediation, preparing your drawings for Archibus. So before we jump too far within the presentation, I'm going to switch into Archibus for a quick moment. The idea of the IWMS platform is it houses various modules, and the core feature we're going to focus in on is the space planning and management, because that's ultimately where the drawing sits and is being stored and owned. And as a floor plan, as floor data, as room data, it's shared among the other modules. So that focus is actually going to be handled within this particular process within space. Basically, aside from the idea that Archibus would house all the data for that space of all the building names, all the floor names and room names, ultimately it would start storing things like what your rooms are being used for. So categories and types, what kind of organizational data it would belong to, and the like. But before we actually get that far, we would actually have to start controlling and assigning that data. So what we're going to jump into is something called a space console, which is available since 21.2. And within what I'm going into is just doing a recent search of some things I have for this particular demo. So I am going to look for some of my recent searches. Let's do a search for two particular buildings. You can see here when I scroll through Archibus, I have a list of all my buildings. So that's kind of the end goal you would want, where someone could go in, they can find a building, find a floor plan, and showcase that information on the screen on the website of things. And I am looking for this particular location. So I'm going to start narrowing down my information to two particular buildings. And I'm going to show you two outputs, basically. The first output is a drawing that's actually done and handled through AutoCAD. So what you're seeing is we're doing some highlights, and right now we're just going to showcase a quick Archibus functionality where we can highlight that data, show us all our room data, and I can switch to a tab that lets me correspond that room data back to the actual drawing. If I switch over, I'm now comparing this to a drawing that is done using Revit. So fundamentally, in terms of the core functionality of what you see on the screen, it's actually not that different. If we turn off some of these highlights, these highlights are dynamic, so I can specify what kind of highlight, assign that to those rooms, and then using that, the drawings that were supplied from either Revit or AutoCAD, I can run different reports on them. So we switch this highlighting to none just so we can see the bare bone background of the actual drawing. You will notice that the drawing here that is Revit focused is mainly black and white in terms of the background. If we compare that to something that was handled in AutoCAD, you will see that there are definitely some more colors because in AutoCAD we will be looking into layer management. So that is kind of giving you the idea as a lightest overview of that end goal for it. As we continue back from where we left off, now the conversation is about, well, what is the difference ultimately between your AutoCAD and Revit, and why should I go between the two? So truthfully, AutoCAD is a long-time standing application. It's been around for 30 years, pretty much Autodesk's flagship. You would stay within AutoCAD, for example, if your existing drawings is in AutoCAD already. So when I go through this particular session, we are making the assumption that all your drawings are in some sort of format and you're ready to go to start linking them. And this isn't really a conversation about, oh, my drawings may not actually be accurate. The walls and the doors may not be accurate at this point. So that is not the same conversation as I trust the area definitions within my drawings. I'm ready to throw them into Archibus kind of idea. So if that existing inventory of all your buildings, all your floor plans is already in AutoCAD, then you typically might just stay with AutoCAD. And especially if, say, you as an organization, you're receiving architectural floor plans from a consultant and they're still coming in as AutoCAD, then you're more likely to stay within the AutoCAD route. However, if some of your drawings really aren't in some sort of CAD format, for example, you have blueprints, you have TIFF files or PDFs, what you could consider is that ultimately you transition them to some sort of digital format, be it AutoCAD or Revit. Now, there's going to be some catches I'll explain later on that you'll start picking up and noticing. So as we go from there, you will be able to compare the kind of work that would entail with AutoCAD drawings versus managing Revit drawings. For some particular consultants, the architectural consultants, they might give you a drawing in Revit because that's the format they've been doing for the BIM kind of idea, heavily in BIM. I'm not saying AutoCAD doesn't do BIM, but most architectural companies are sticking within the Revit and making that conscious choice to go there. And it's released since 2000, and it's not as common to see that everywhere, for sure. We're not saying that direction isn't increasing. But when you would consider Revit is, for example, if you do have an inventory and they all are in non-CAD format, if you're going to draw them from scratch, it might technically be easier for you to do it in Revit. So we'll explain why later on. If your consultants actually are drawing in Revit, and then you start asking them, hey, can you convert that to AutoCAD for me for my inventory? You typically would need to give the CAD team there a template. So you would provide that in order to ensure it's at a certain consistency that you want or a certain standard that you want. Otherwise, when the architecture team might do that themselves, they might define that. You might actually be asking them to do extra work, just so you're aware. But no matter what, at the bottom line of it is that you'd want to make sure that your AutoCAD or your Revit version would be compatible with that IWMS platform. So for AutoCAD and Revit, there is a compatibility matrix we can provide you for the version of Archibus. The next section we want to talk about is naming, because at the end of the day, naming is key. It's going to be something to relate to a drawing name. For example, is your main reference. Your drawings are going to go somewhere in Archibus under a table. So for example, you might end up naming your drawings building name or building code or some sort of ID that might even be related to the same ID coming from your financial system. But ultimately, you want to be able to identify your drawings. So in AutoCAD, the real relationship you would do to bring them into Archibus is that is the one drawing, which is one floor plan to represent a building. So sometimes when you get drawings from a consultant, it might be a situation where it's a drawing, but there's more than one building on it. And even though they're talking about the same one floor, it's technically multiple buildings. So there will be the idea that you'd have to split that out to some degree. So ultimately, when you start naming things, you'd want to make sure your buildings are split out by building name and by a floor identifier, so that you have some consistency with your naming. In Revit, basically how it works out is you have the idea of a building name. For example, it could be a building identifier, but something to identify the drawing uniquely. Revit will take care of itself when you start adding floors to it, so that part is a little simpler. We're going to talk to the idea of the prep, which involves the, master sets. So either one, whether you're going AutoCAD or Revit, it's going to rely on the data of a master set. And that master set's either in an AutoCAD format or it's not in any kind of CAD format. This is what the set that the architecture consultant will give you when they conclude your building's done. Here you go. When you look at it, it's got the output in the drawing has got grid lines, it's got columns, section cuts, all these things that you don't actually want to show a space planner or a maintenance team. So when we saw it in Archibus, it was just showing us the idea of the space. So we're not seeing the cutouts and all that sectional detail to it. When you prep that drawing, you do have a few options. So now we're going to explain why you go with that option. Now, if it's not in CAD, it's a PDF, it's a TIFF, or it's a blueprint, and depending on that age of your inventory, obviously, by the time you get the actual concept of the drawing, it's ready to be used in Archibus. You're definitely not in that planning stage where you have that input, and you might not be in that same team that handles that. So when you get the drawing, you're ready to try to put that into Archibus. If we're looking at Archibus and AutoCAD as that combination, usually what happens in AutoCAD, you might have to look at the master set. It might have a whole series of layers. It might have a whole series of the data that you don't really want people to see. So that could get confusing. The master set is something you can either directly use. That's pretty rare. Like I said, there could be so much data in it that it's hard to show that to online for someone and they'd be able to read it. Or if it's not in that CAD format, you're slowly converting that into a digital format. So you're actually creating the master set. That could happen as well. Or you're taking that master set and you're using it as an external reference, what we call XREF. So you'll end up creating something in AutoCAD, but it's technically a drawing that is meant for Archibus use only. And then it uses that master set in this as an external reference. So I'm going to pause here for one quick second and show you how that would look like. In AutoCAD, it's not uncommon to get a drawing from a consultant that will look something like this, because they might have a preset kind of colors and line weights and things like that. And that would be something you can read as a space planner or some sort of CAD team. It might not mean much to a craftsperson looking at it or a dispatcher looking at that data. And when we look at the actual layer list, it would look something similar to this, where you do have various amount of layers already coming out of the consultant's drawings. AutoCAD, when you get it ready for Archibus purpose, is going to be a lot cleaner in terms of not showing those columns and not showing those things. So either you're working off that master set and hiding all those layers, or you're XREFing, so that you have some control of what layers do show up for your own purposes. And when you start working in Archibus uses its own series of layers as well. So it depends on how many layers you really want to see when you're managing a drawing. So all these is mostly an AutoCAD. Some of them are AutoCAD layers. Some of these are Archibus layers. And that will be our next conversation. Back to our slide. If we're talking Revit now, you do something similar too, where you could potentially have a drawing from a consultant, and you can use that drawing, that Revit master set is being directly used because Archibus will publish certain layers from the Revit by default. So this is that situation there, and the other situation is where it's not in any kind of CAD format. So now you're creating that master set in Revit and managing it. The last situation is your consultant might be giving you a massive master set because it's a series of linked drawings to begin with. So you might also want to look at externally referencing that. It would be kind of rare too as well, and we'll explain why, because there might be some extra work to go with it. When you reference a drawing in Revit, Archibus won't pick up that the rooms that are defined from that external reference. So you're going to have to kind of redraw kind of walls or draw area lines so you can use the drawing. So now let's switch over real quick to what that Revit drawing would look like. So here's that same Revit drawing that we saw earlier in its pure Revit form. As you can see here, there's parts from the parking pad outside, so this is parts of the site plan actually present in the main floor plan, and as well as all the section cuts, all these patterns, all these labels for the windows and dimensions. When you publish to Archibus, Archibus is only going to take the useful layers and put that in from your Revit drawing. So, time to talk about the layers. The idea is your master set, if it has XREFs in them, and your master set, for example, is very straightforward, then yeah, it definitely is no problem to work off your master set. We're not saying it's not the way to go at all when we're talking AutoCAD drawings. And basically what happens is that no matter what, at the end of the day, in your AutoCAD, you're going to have to manage the layers. You're going to have to manage what shows up, what gets published. And as we mentioned before, Archibus themselves will start using certain layers themselves. So for every kind of object, for example, rooms, a room layer is identified as RM. And Archibus has a few versions of the room layers. One is a prototype layer, so one where you're just creating the object there. It's not linked to the system. You're just preparing the shape. The second version of the same layer, the one with the RM $, is now the asset symbol. So now this object is when it gets linked to Archibus, and that's the layer it resides in. And when it's in Archibus, you can specify that you want to see the text in your AutoCAD to Archibus overlay. So you can so then that will actually bring on a layer that is a asset text layer that is linked. When you're working in AutoCAD, you have to make sure everything you're drawing is on the same z-axis, because you want things to snap together, and when you have it in different z-axes, it's not going to actually look right in even in AutoCAD, visually you might think it looks right, but once you bring it in over in Archibus, you will discover it's not correct. Because in AutoCAD, you can technically draw in 3D. Even though most of our drawings are in 2D, it is assumed that your consultant, when you get your drawings from them, that they are all in the same Z-axis. So you might want to check those when you get them, that they're all flat as a drawing. The next thing within AutoCAD is you'll have to standardize line weights and colors, and if you've gotten a large inventory of previous AutoCAD drawings that were from a series of, say, different consultants in the past, different architectural consultants in the past, then they might have used different line weights, different colors, different naming conventions for the layers, so you'd actually have to standardize them all. Because first off, then it's readable. If we're looking at something where the wall of a drawing is in bright red and the cabinet linings are in purple for one drawing, and then you look at the next drawing, so now the cabinets there are bright red and the walls are in purple, to the untrained eye, that does create confusion. And when we look into the idea of the Revit does have some defaults, because Revit is using a lot of CAD standards itself. So the layer conventions is actually taken care of for you. You actually don't even care to see what the layer names are. It's actually handled in the system itself. And then just making sure that the drawings are on the right levels, because in Revit you're actually drawing in 3D. So when you look at a drawing, you want to make sure the walls, the doors, and the rooms are definitely on the right level. Layer coloring is already taken care of for you as well. So that is kind of giving you the idea of how much work goes into both drawings. From the architect's perspective, as a consultant, it's definitely more work to manage a Revit drawing too, and there is going to be complications with CAD drawings. But when you get the drawing for it to be put in Archibus, there is actually a little bit more work for you to do when you're managing it through AutoCAD. We're not saying that we don't have folks that use a combination of both AutoCAD and Revit to manage their drawings. So if their old drawings that they've been getting from their consultants have always been in AutoCAD, but the new things that are incoming is on Revit, there's nothing preventing you from saying, I will start using Revit for all my new drawings, because you know it will be easier for you to manage this particular element alone. And the last conversation is the idea of drawing your areas. Basically, no matter what, you have to decide on a standard. And there's many standards on area out there, such as BOMA and the like. And basically, they have certain set rules. For example, where to start measuring real area, whether it's center of the wall lines or inside wall to inside wall kind of idea. And basically, in AutoCAD, you have to enforce this. It might actually be a manual process, and it typically is, because you get your drawings from the architectural consultant, and they already have drawing lines. They might actually have the area lines for you. They would be in a polyline, although they might actually not be in the true standard that you agreed on how you're going to measure area. For example, if you considered your agreed area standard is BOMA, but when you look at your master set, it shows that all the area lines are just showing inside wall area. That's how they measured area. How BOMA actually works is that by the type of room, they have a certain rank and priority. So something like a corridor will actually take up the area of the wall beside the office. That is how BOMA actually works. And if you feel you're okay going that far, then that's how you would manage it. Of course, it's okay, too, to feel that you're going to go with some slight modification of the BOMA standard because the work that was done by the architectural consultants already there for identifying what that area boundary is, and you're just going to use that boundary as what's going to go in to feed into Archibus. When you draw polylines, no matter what, in AutoCAD, they do need to be closed, because when it's closed, you now can get a real area, and now you can link it to Archibus. That conversation in Revit is actually going to be simpler. And truthfully, the conversation here is not to be biased with Revit in any way, but there's definitely certain pros and cons between both softwares. AutoCAD being something where you can really control how things look. Revit is something where it's all standardized. So when, basically when you have a drawing, it's already got the rooms defined in it. Pretty much as it has a room tag, you're pretty much good to go. For it to have a room tag in the first place in Revit, it needs to have boundary lines. It needs to have a full wall, and basically being able to specify this is a space. In Revit, you pretty much set in there in the system whether it's measuring inside wall to inside wall, or it's measuring center of the room. So that in Revit is simpler for the area preparation part of things, and especially if you're going to switch area standards midway, because some folks, they might want to try one particular area standard that might be a modified industry standard, but then they go for a global standard, and now things might have to change. So when you suddenly have to do that, as I said, you might have to be in a position where you have to tweak every single area boundary in AutoCAD. Versus in Revit, you just do a setting against your walls, and that is technically faster. Now, to give it some justice, AutoCAD does have an AutoCAD architecture side of things where it kind of works like Revit. It handles the walls. It will do your boundaries. The chances of you actually using AutoCAD architecture to Archibus is actually rare, because it's actually Archibus to the regular AutoCAD for the linkage. So that kind of covers that idea between the two products, so that you have an idea of the kind of work is involved for your drawing remediation. I'm going to pass the baton back to Ayana.
Thanks. Thanks, Tiffany. That's great. Obviously, there's a lot involved, and we're not going to answer everybody's questions today on it. It's really just a bit of a snapshot into some of the considerations when you're looking at BIM, or not BIM, sorry, AutoCAD and Revit, and what it means to sort of ready your drawings and some of the considerations. Tiffany talked about the standardization of your standards, being able to polyline and obviously catalog your requirements to the database. It is bidirectional, so it's important to know that changes in one can be updated automatically in the others. It is a licensing piece. If you started with Archibus and you didn't start in the space and you don't have the Smart Client extension for AutoCAD, then those are pieces that you can add. It's a modular system, so we can add that kind of flexibility. Some people are just working with leasing or project management or some of the other areas, and maybe haven't yet got into the wonderful ability to visualize your floor plans and your buildings and your portfolios through AutoCAD. Anyways, you can certainly contact us. Part of our commitment is to really help our clients excel by not only offering the latest software, service, and support, but the advice and business analytics that go with it as well. So as implementation for IWMS and integration specialists with a long track record and lots of experience, we really do have the know-how and resources to offer everything from mentoring through to doing the work for you. This kind of thing, often people will ask us to do get the AutoCAD linkages made in the database. Sometimes they want us to teach them how to do it. It's really up to you. The bottom line is we know the software, the business, and how they map one to the other, and we try to guide, help our clients sort of navigate the choices that are available to them. We wanted to take a minute to talk about the self-serve training library that we have available. There is something that goes in quite a bit more depth than what you saw today. It's preparing AutoCAD drawings for Archibus, and that's really a very good guide into getting started. We also have a number, so we have end user training videos, power user training videos, systems admin videos, and fundamentals and domain training things. These are all available for download now and are available on our website. So if you want to take a look at what's possible there, if you want to contact us, you can contact iciati@horizon.ca or sales@horizon.ca is good too. We are available to help. We do this in a number of ways. This is just one hot topic webinar among many that are saved on our website. So if you are interested in other things, you can go and browse some of the topics that are there. It'll be a number of our resources. Our Horizon has over 30 resources that are available to help with various different types of skill sets that are needed to do implementation, whether it's project management or BA work or the the trainers. We also have the people that can really help you get going and be successful with your system. So on site there you can see we do have strategic tailored support, on-site and online resourcing, training and mentoring that's available, and we do help with community development. So through user groups, workshops, we have an industry newsletter. We're also on Twitter at Horizon1. And you can follow us for workshops and additional new titles as they come up for the webinars. So thank you very much, Tiffany. Appreciate all your expertise in the AutoCAD versus Revit and what it means to get it into the database. Really appreciate that. Thank you.
And thank you, Ayana, for leading the webinar.
No problem. Okay, bye everyone. Enjoy your day.